Hello, fellow ex-citizens. So today we are going to do a little detour. We are going to talk today about the landscape of Liberia, particularly how beautiful it is and how we are currently treating that landscape. So I complain a little bit about, how people are building wrongly, people are building the wrong structures, and we need to stop doing that. And one of the way to help do that is to bring some of these conversations to life. And besides bringing the conversations to life, is to actually invest into building things that look different. Hence the idea of equity. But let's just talk a little bit about what I think Liberia is experiencing right now. So there are two things happening. One, we are undergoing what we call a construction boom in Liberia. Ask anyone who's been visiting Liberia in the last maybe say 10 years. Every time you go, even if the interval of your visits is like 1 year, much less if it is 5 years, you're going to sometimes see areas that you will barely recognize. Why? Because there will be new buildings that have popped up in your absence. So I think people who have visited Liberia a bit, maybe multiple times in the last decade, they can attest to this. So I'm one person who definitely have visited frequently in the last decade, so I know this for a fact. But please feel free to comment here, corroborate, or basically invalidate my remarks here if you think otherwise. But I think strongly that Liberia is undergoing a construction boom. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I think we are mostly building wrongly in Liberia. The reason I say this is because when I look at most of the buildings that I see around when I drive around in the city or in the suburbs, I think most people are violating the zoning laws. That's one. Two, besides violation of the zoning laws, they are also not following good engineering principles in terms of the design of the buildings and the construction of the buildings themselves. So if you look at those two main things, right, that I mentioned that are happening, one, we are building a lot, and two, we are building wrongly. What is that going to lead to? I think we all know where that is going to be taking us. We are going to end up with newer suburbs of Monrovia and the country at large, where 5 years from now or a generation from now, those constructions are actually an impediment to other growth in different sectors rather than be like something that people can launch other ventures on top of. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying in concrete terms. Take a community that has a mixture and no separation of zones, a mixture of like industrial plants where people have factories producing some things. And yes, there are actually processing factories now in residential communities in Liberia. And then they also have like the residential homes, and then they also have like commercial zones, and also even at the building level. So this is at the zone level, but even at the building level, you how many times have you seen a building that is, in fact, most buildings that are street facing in Liberia, individuals tend to uh, tap into the fact that because the building is street facing, then it must have a store attached to it. I get it. Having, in fact, so let me just take a step back. Actually, having a mixed use building is good. And mixed use buildings are buildings where, for example, there's a residential section and there's a business section. An example of that is these mixed use apartment buildings where the upper floors are for residential purposes and the lower floors are for like shopping purposes, like business purposes. For example, you have in your ice cream store underneath on the ground floor, while the upper floors are residential buildings. We plan to have some of these in X City. But what I'm speaking about here, which is the bad one, is where people build their residential home, not apartment homes. They are residential homes, and then the very front of that residential home turns out to be a big storefront. So there is no clear separation between what is the entrance to your residential home versus what is the entrance to this building. And then, because they want to make some business that competes, so they don't want a competitor business to come and locate themselves between their shop or their street-facing business and the street, so they push the buildings right onto the street itself. How many times haven't we seen this scenario where, the government wants to expand the road, or the government is running high tension electric cables over the streets, and it runs over someone's residential home? These things don't happen by mistakes. They happen, well, maybe they happen by mistakes because some ignorance, if we can categorize that, maybe people don't know all of these things, so it happens, so you can call that mistake. But what I'm simply saying is that those buildings were constructed that way intentionally because someone wants to maximize profit, right? They want to get at most out of the building. While I understand that, I think we need to be a little bit wise when we are putting buildings down. I don't even think those type of construction are safe for the residents of those buildings when the buildings are located so close to the streets, right? So I think we need to do a better job of that. And so going to the second point, right, where we're talking about like Liberia is beautiful and we are destroying it. I have in this video an example of a landscape that is super beautiful. And I know there are many landscapes like that in Liberia. But I just wanted to highlight one specific example of a landscape that I visited because the owner of this place actually happens to be a client of X City. So this is a video about a Liberian who owns this property. Well, the video is not about the Liberian. This is a video about his property. Enjoy the video and enjoy the beautiful landscape of Liberia. And always remember that when we are building in these kind of areas, we should be mindful of keeping the aesthetics quality, if not raising the bar of from where it is, but at least let's keep it. The bare minimum we can do is to keep the aesthetics the same, keep that constant, or improve it, not degrade it as we often do. So enjoy the video. Thanks, guys. Man, all around you have the lagoon. Yeah, I have a mine drum. We can do some area shots. Get it out. You want to be seeing this over and over. Oh man, look at that. sand. Nice. Now we are gonna go explore the mini island. It's beautiful. All right. Whew. How gorgeous this place is. This place is too beautiful. This is gorgeous.